Another session of wisdom talks and meditation, and we've got another session of power of prayer, a series I'm doing with Acyuta Gopi, and we're going to be talking about the power of prayer. So please, everybody, send your prayers, send your thoughts, and also your questions. This is so important. I'm just going to put it onto Instagram. I know we can see it on Facebook and the other channels, and I'm just going to get her on right now so we can talk about this topic. And here she is. How are you doing today?
I'm good. No complaints. Everything is great.
Yeah, we got and everybody, just so you're wondering, last time, apologies, we had some technical difficulties, so we couldn't, and we thought we'll come on today and make amends and talk about what we were going to talk about last week. And today we want to talk about, when it comes to power prayer, the prayers of Bhishma. So we're going to go into the prayers of Bhishma, amazing personality, the grandfather of the Mahabharata, we can say, and we'll go even more detail what that means for those that don't know. And also just going through a bit of a discussion on this topic. So if you have any questions, please do say, because we have Acyuta Gopi. She is one person for me who, it just oozes wisdom. So this wisdom talks is with having people like her on. And today I want to just delve into this topic of Bhishma. So can we, first of all, before starting, just for those that may not know, who is Bhishma?
Yeah. I mean, if we can do a quick synopsis of like a century and a half of history.
I don't ask much, do I, on these things?
So yeah, but Bhishma, glorious, wonderful personality, born of the goddess Ganga herself and the great king Shantanu. And he was taken by his mother Ganga to learn everything that he learned in the kingdom of the celestial devas, in the kingdom of the heavens. So he was taught by some of the greatest personalities to ever teach anything. He's taught by the guru of the demigods Brihaspati. He's taught, ethics and religiosity, and he's taught weaponry by Lord Parshuram himself. So he's such a valiant and chivalrous person. And then he kind of gets roped in with this kingdom of the Kurus, trying to protect their throne, in essence, from irreligion and from being unrighteous. And it's just an amazing example of how you can be the most righteous person. However, if there are those who just refuse to take good counsel, it's like, what can you do, So even though he's personally there, son of the most pure Ganga Devi, and he's trying hard to advise and counsel this Kuru dynasty, they still go a little bit wayward, because that seems to be the way that this material world is set up, which is kind of interesting. We think, shouldn't somebody fix this? And just earlier, I was reading in Srimad Bhagavatam, and they were saying that, and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur often says, the world does not need a reform, which means that, in essence, this material world is not really broken. Someone is always going to try and oppress someone else. Someone is always going to try and subjugate someone else. The rule of this place is that there are going to be calamities and there's going to be suffering. There's going to be painful events that happen in our lives. And one would think, like, well, why is this? Like, who would set up this miserable place then? And the answer is, in effect, we did. The original desire was that we wanted to forget our true nature as being servant of the divine. We wanted to be worshipped the way we were ultimately meant to love and worship the divine. And so we set up this place, this place is set up where, okay, go ahead. You think you can become a controller? Try your best. Do your best. And so this place with all of its actions and reactions becomes such a place of entanglement, a place of confusion, a place of misery, because so many things happen and there's always going to be reactions.
So regarding his life, he's a person that, of course, did not get married. He is a person that was so bound to duty for his family. And like you said, he was a warrior that had all the best training, but he also was very gifted as an individual. So he was seen as like, the senapati, or what we say is the head of the armies. So looking at his life, because he was a person, and like you just said, sometimes we think life the way it's treated because we make the decisions in life itself. And of course, he had to make some decisions in his life. And we cannot put those decisions, somebody will say, oh, it was this karma, it was this, it was that. But here, some of the decisions he made actually did have a very significant impact on what shaped the story as it went on. So, and he went through a lot of trials and tribulations, even when he was young, if I'm correct. So we've got a person here, for those that are joining, we're talking about the prayers of Bhishma Dev, because this is a Power of Prayer series we're going through. So today, if those want to look into it a bit more, there's the Bhishma Stuti, which is on Canto 1, Chapter 9. I believe the verses, my head's gone. Can you remember the verse? I think is it 40 something. If anybody knows, please do say. But we're talking specifically on that aspect and going into his life and how he was able to remember the divine at a time of death, and actually in a very glorious way. So what about his dynamics as an individual? Because he was the best at everything in a way. So what was his situation now with, you got the Pandavas and the Kauravas? Can we talk a bit about the dynamics there and how he was able to, reconcile where he could?
And he tried. It's like looking at somebody who has the best of intentions. And what's really interesting is between Bhishma and between Vidura, who was also one of the most knowledgeable and righteous figures of the entire Mahabharata, this entire historical account. Between the two of them, they tried so many things to reconcile this great enmity, this great disbanding, and they both tried, but they were only able to influence the Pandavas because they were the only ones who would listen to truthfulness. Duryodhana and the Kauravas were just going to do whatever they wanted, no matter what. And so it just goes to show that you can have the best of intentions and still somehow you get it wrong. So then, it seems hopeless. It's like, well, what do we do? Well, then what righteousness is there? What is all this for? And that's actually what Krishna says within Mahabharata. He says, listen, true righteousness is fixing your mind on me. True righteousness is doing what I tell you to do because I tell you to do it. True righteousness doesn't always mean you can follow all of the rules of every single Vedic injunction and still have a demoniac mentality, still have a atheistic mentality. You could, and there are cases of demons like Ravana, and from the Mahabharata itself, like Jarasandha, who was a great king, but he imprisoned other kings. And they say, Srimad Bhagavatam says that Jarasandha never failed to perform all Vedic regulations. He was an amazing Brahmana. He would perform all the regulative duties. So outwardly, he looks extremely pious. Inwardly, he's a complete atheist. He's like, who is this God? I'm gonna do this by my own strength. So sometimes we look and we're like, is doing good deeds it? Is that the way? And it's like, not always. We have to do these good deeds with the mindset that I am trying to please the divine, because this world has its own causes and effects. So Bhishma Dev does all of these things on the strength of his righteousness, on the strength of his duty, and he tries to save this throne, and he can't. He can't. He cannot save his family, Duryodhana, Dhritarashtra. He can't save them. He can't stop them from going down this path of unrighteousness, dishonor, lying, cheating, stealing. The Kauravas tried to murder the Pandavas multiple times, and there was nothing Bhishma could do. And one would think, but he's the son of Ganga. Like, can't you just kill them all? Well, then you get caught up in this cycle of actions and reactions and all of these things. And finally, while they're fighting on the battlefield, Krishna actually gets angry with Bhishma. And he goes charging toward him and he says, this is your fault. This is all because of you. You were the greatest leader that this clan ever had. You could have stopped everything. But instead you chose to cling to this righteousness. But the idea of all righteousness, the idea behind it, is supposed to be attaining me. And so then we see Krishna, he does some things and it looks like Krishna cheats to get what he wants. It looks like Krishna will break the rules to get what he wants. But Krishna will do it all for the love of those who fix their minds on him. And so even though Bhishma was not able to wrangle and get his family in line, still he is known as a Mahajan. He's known as one of the greatest souls, of which there are only 12, whose footsteps we should always follow in.
There's something, so this person who we should, footsteps who we should follow in, it's a lesson here. And the lesson here is that we cannot control everything in life. Even the greatest of greats could not control what was happening on this material earth. This is one thing that I think everybody would be very good to use this example. Sometimes we think in our lives, oh my God, why is this happening? Why is that happening? But here, think of Bhishma. So let's do the think Bhishma, where actually even he couldn't do it. So let's put it from that point. So that's really nice. Thank you for that analogy. And it's really great that we can meditate on that point. So now we go on to Bhishma's life, because the power of the prayer is, he was a person that, for those that are yogics on here as well, he could, control his time of death, which, hey, only a very elevated individual. I know there's books out there that talk about this, but this is a person that was doing that. But so he could choose his time of death. Even when he had arrows in him, he was able to take himself to that place where he could control his life air. So if we can go on to that part, because that's where the juiciness comes out about him glorifying the divine and bringing out the prayers. Could you please explain to the audience how that scenario happens? What's it looking like? Who's present when he is glorifying?
So he is taken down during the 10th day of battle. Now, this great battle lasted for 18 days. He was taken down on the 10th. And he's put on this bed of arrows, but the war still lasted for another 8 days. And then there was still time after that. So he is said to be waiting for the sun to move into the northern hemisphere, this Uttarayana, most auspicious time, where the sun moves, and then it's supposed to be a very auspicious time to leave your body. But our commentators on Srimad Bhagavatam say that Uttarayana refers also to Lord Krishna. And so it says that Bhishma was waiting for Krishna. Yeah. And it's like, it's a very interesting word play within Sanskrit, but it'll take so long to go through. We want to make sure we get through everything. But yeah, he was actually waiting for Krishna. So Uttarayana means when the sun moves to the northern hemisphere, but Uttarayana also means one who has taken shelter of Uttara. And if we know anything about Mahabharata and the aftermath, Lord Krishna has just come from saving Maharaj Parikshit within the womb of Uttara. So Lord Krishna is the one who also took shelter of Uttara. So he is also known as Uttarayana. So that when they say he's waiting for this, he's waiting for Krishna. And so he says in his Bhishma Stuti, he's like, I tried to live a life of righteousness, but I am so fortunate that I can now fix my mind upon the Supreme Lord, because the Lord himself has, by his own grace, appeared before me at the time of my death. So the Pandavas are there. A few of the other leaders are there. And Krishna has personally come and brought Yudhishthir to learn how to rule a kingdom from Bhishma Dev. And they say that Krishna, of course, he could have told Yudhishthir how to rule. Krishna knew everything. Krishna was there, but he wanted to glorify Bhishma. And so he said, let me take you to Bhishma. He will tell you how you should rule this new era. And so Bhishma tells Yudhishthir all of the codes of ethics and religion and how to be a righteous king. But then he says, now I want to fix my mind on this most divine personality. And so one might think, like we said earlier, one might think that, oh, well, being religious is for the end of our lives. I'll focus on that when I get older. Look at Bhishma. He lived his whole life. He helped people rule. He was an advisor. In that sense, he was a very judicious person. He was an administrator. Let me do my job, and then I'll worry about my religion at the end of my life. But we don't know when that will be. We don't have that power to control when our lives end. So unlike Bhishma, we are not gifted with that. But the key is, it's like, did Bhishma only focus his mind on the divine at the end of his life? And the secret is no. He was one of the very few people who could understand Krishna for who he was, even when Krishna appeared within the court of this Kuru dynasty. So there are a few examples. He says Yudhishthir performed this Rajasuya Yagya so that he could become the king of all kings. And Bhishma says, I was present at that time. And I saw how Yudhishthir personally worshipped Lord Krishna as the foremost of all personalities. And I personally, I would fix my mind on that one event just to remember Krishna throughout my life. So it's amazing that Bhishma Dev was already old by the time that Krishna made his appearance in his earthly pastimes. But there is a story of an Ekadashi. And in that Ekadashi story, it tells how Pandu was speaking with Bhishma way before Krishna makes his appearance. And it is said that, the Supreme Lord will make his appearance on the earth. He will come in the Yadu dynasty. It elaborated this whole plan, And so Bhishma already knew. He's such a divine, knowledgeable person that he already knew. And so that's why in this way, Krishna says, this is your fault. You could have stopped everything. You knew who I was. You knew that I was the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and still you didn't exert your power over these other people. And so, he says, you could have had the responsibility to say, I'll wipe out this Dhritarashtra and everybody else. I will do it myself until we get another righteous king. But he says, but you wanted to hold true to your vow. You had such pride in that vow that you weren't willing to give it up, even if you knew it would serve me in the long run. So it's just kind of amazing how Krishna says, you can have all these promises. You can have all this religiosity. But if in the end, it doesn't ultimately serve the divine, what is it good for? If our religion is only meant to tell other people that they are wrong or that they are going to hell, then what is it good for?
Fantastic. And this, actually, you see that in today's society, don't we? That we have this, hey, you're on a wrong path. You're doing this. Like you said, you're going to go to hellfire. This and this and this and this. That's the specific word I hear all the time.
Yeah.
And here, the divine saying, actually, if you all this you're doing at a time of death, you don't remember the divine, then what's the point? It's like life is a journey preparing us for death. I know it sounds really harsh, everyone, but just hear me out. You think, oh my God, what's this Jagannatha talking about? I'm coming off this right now. but if you think about it, when we follow a certain practice, sadhana, we call it, what are we doing? The rule is, like, I remember doing Bhakti Shastri, a course that we do that lasts for a bit of time. And the golden rule was, at the end, always remember the divine, never forget him.
Yes.
But to do that, and you can hear Bhishma remembering things at the time of the Rajasuya sacrifice. And he still remembered it when he was, at the time of death as well. And he's talking about it. So we ourselves are in that situation where we can forget the divine anytime. Even when we are motives for doing certain things, we'll believe that the divine is part of it, but actually it's more about us.
Yes.
And this is the part, isn't it? It's like, this is why we have sadhana. This is why we have these practices. It's not, some people will say, oh, you're brainwashing doing this by doing these sadhana, etc. It's not. It's actually realigning ourselves back to making sure we can think about the divine and see the higher priority in life instead of letting our mode of nature get to passion and ignorance. So that's one thing I feel, isn't it? That
yeah, and that's why Krishna says such strong things like abandon all varieties of religion, because he's saying, what is it good for? If your religion, if you're then using it to say, oh, I will get money from the congregation, or I will do this, or I will do that, and the divine is not at the center of your heart when it's fixed in worship. And he's saying, then what is it good for? If the center of our religion is just fault finding faults with other people who are on their religious path, then what is it good for? Which is why Srila Prabhupada says real religion is to know who is God, how do I love him? That is it. He would say, Lord Jesus Christ was such a man of God. He devoted his life to devotion unto God. And so he says, all that is necessary is for those who say they are Christians to expertly follow. Just follow that path. Just love God. So I really appreciate that Srila Prabhupada was so non-sectarian in that regard. He was not saying that, oh, you are wrong, you are wrong, you are wrong. He would ask questions like, well, why, Lord Jesus has said this, this, and this. Why do you not follow that? Why do you only choose to follow this one thing? Why not follow him, cent percent, follow his mood? And that was to love God ultimately, over and above all. And so all the other teachings come from that.
So this is the part. So here we've seen Bhishma Dev.
Yeah.
He was very devoted as well. If you see, he was expert in all parts, but if he's remembering the divine from such a young age till the time he's dying, all the process, always keeping him in his mind. What a successful individual he was. And then at the time of death, he had the divine in front of him. Usually we have two types, isn't it? Either the person will see the divine, or there's vipralamba, meaning we are in a detachment from the Lord. We are remembering the Lord. So here he had him in front of him. So he must have been this just tells us how amazing he was, how magnanimous he was.
Absolutely. Even if the Lord, in the course of these pastimes, externally, he blamed Bhishma. But that's only because he understood how great he was at heart. He's saying, you fixed your mind on me. You knew who I was. Why didn't you tell them? Tell them, because you've got it. You have the perfection. You have everything. And that's why the Lord, because he says, Bhishma says, you cannot force the Lord to appear anywhere, but by his own sweet will, the Lord has graced me and chosen to appear before me at the time of my death. This is a very personal choice, but the Lord chose it out of love. He understood Bhishma had love for him in his heart.
I want at this stage, just because we're going a bit deeper on some aspects of Bhishma Dev, and I'm conscious, just in case anybody that's joining have any questions, just about his life, about what we've just been discussing, please do message on Instagram or even on the other platforms. And I'm going to be trying to bring up some of those questions, because this is interactive. We do want to have your thoughts on this, and also what realizations you've been having as well. Just this aspect of power of prayer. We're talking about a specific personality, but what realizations you've been having, or what thoughts have you had when you've been doing praying as well? We'd love to hear. So please do message as we're discussing, and I will try and bring up those points. I want to go into now yourself, actually, Acyuta Gopi. You're doing, power prayer is something very close to your heart, and hence the reason. Actually, when we were discussing, it was you said, "Hey, let's call it the power prayer." So that was born by her, and your book itself, the Prema Mala, which we talk about. Is there anything in your book itself that you would like to share that actually emphasizes these points we're talking about, especially on power prayer?
So, with Bhishma being such a warrior, and with him being such an amazing administrator and this wonderful Kshatriya, this chivalrous gentleman, he often remembers in his own prayers, he remembers Krishna on the battlefield. And what a unique perspective, thinking about serving Krishna on a battlefield, fighting against him. And he says that Krishna, his body was made reddish due to bearing the marks of my arrows. I shot arrows at him. And still, the Lord accepted this as devotional service. And so he said, I wanted to see a new side of Krishna. And so at one point, Bhishma vows to kill Arjuna. And he knows that Krishna will never let this happen. He says it himself. I know that it is impossible to defeat Arjuna because Krishna is there on his chariot. It's impossible. But I vowed to kill Arjuna because I wanted to see a special mood of Krishna's. I wanted to get him to become so upset with me that he would manifest something new. So when he vows to kill Arjuna and he's shooting all of these arrows, Krishna at one point gets so angry, he jumps off the chariot, throws down the reins to the horses, picks up a broken chariot wheel from the battlegrounds, and goes charging at Bhishma. What does Bhishma remember? He says he remembers the Lord's eyes, which are naturally reddish, growing even more red in anger. Wow. He remembers the Lord charging at him and the color of his skin smeared with the blood from his own arrows. But the Lord accepted it like garlands, like petals. And then he remembers, I thought was the most beautifully small detail. He says, when he charged at me, he dropped his chadar on the way. And I was just thinking, to have this in your mind, this war is going on for 8 days. Bhishma's not thinking about who's going to win, who's going to lose. He's lying on that bed of arrows, remembering my Krishna interacted with me. And so that in itself is like, for Bhishma, that's a victory flag over his entire life. was that he got to interact with the Lord. So there's one poem called Victory Flag.
Oh, yes. Yes.
From Premamala. And it's a really short poem, which I really like. So it says, "My love has risen like a victory flag, bearing only your name. I pledge my allegiance to you with every breath. Oh, my Lord, I am yours. I am yours. I am yours."
Wow.
And prayer never has to be even more elaborate than that.
No. Victory flag actually
I
reminds
know,
me.
that's why I read it.
Is it? It's a spiritual teacher, my spiritual teacher. His name is Jayapataka, and it actually means victory flag. So his name means that. Wow, beautiful. See, you know what's really nice is that the poems that are felt, they don't need to be complex. They need to be from the heart, and that was beautiful.
Thank you.
So, thank you so much for sharing. I've got some questions coming through, by the way. Should we hit it?
Yes.
Okay. The first one, Annie on Instagram. She says, the very nice question, by the way, Annie. I like it. Was Bhishma Dev motivated by pride or by duty? So was Bhishma Dev motivated by pride or by duty?
So in the beginning, it's a little bit of both, actually, the answer is. But in the beginning, there was the duty. I'm going to do what's right. And I feel it in my heart that this is what's right. I'm not going to marry. I am not going to rule. I'm going to just serve the throne. And Krishna, that's why Krishna blames him. He says, you could have given it up, knowing that I am the Supreme Lord and knowing that they are trying to kill my devotees. You could have given up your vow, but you didn't. And so he says, there was the pride. You were more attached to being known as this righteous person. And that's where it comes in. That's where it gets tricky. We do something with the best of intentions. And then sometimes our minds can get caught up in, but now everybody knows me for this. I have to keep up that reputation. I have a certain way that I'm looked at that I must uphold. And then it starts becoming more about I and less about serving the divine through our actions, through our body, mind, and words, which that's what he, in the end, Bhishma says, now I want to turn my thinking, feeling, willing. I want to turn my body, mind, and words toward the Supreme Lord, acknowledging himself that sometimes, maybe, even though he had the right intentions, sometimes that pride gets in there with the best of us.
No, good. So it was the duty was his foremost, and then it turned into devotion. That's what I can see from what your answer is there. Is that correct? Yeah. And I've got Kapil's. Kapil's asked, so on Instagram, he's asking, Kapil says, what happened that Bhishma had to lay down on the bed of arrows? So what happened that Bhishma had to lay down on the bed of arrows? Good question. Since we talked about it, we just said he laid down on a bed of arrows. But
Right.
what happened?
I mean,
Why?
also organized by Krishna, there was no way to really defeat Bhishma. He's the grandfather of like all of warrior training. He trained everybody. He trained the people who trained everyone else. He's the greatest, most excellent fighter that there was. There was no one who was going to be able to defeat him. But he had his own code of ethics. And so he wouldn't fight a woman or someone who used to be a woman or someone who was a woman and then changed. And so they brought Shikandi, the daughter/son of Drupad, King Drupad. So in a former life, what happens is there is Amba. She is a princess from the king of Kashi, and she gets into an altercation with Bhishma. And in the end, she says, well, Bhishma, now I'm a woman on my own. I've been forsaken by my family and all these things. Now you should marry me. And Bhishma says, I can't do that. She goes eventually and does so much austerity that she gets Lord Parshuram himself, Bhishma's own teacher. And Bhishma fights with Parshuram, and eventually Lord Shiva himself has to intervene and say, look, this is not going to work. You two are not going to be able to fight each other. Best give up now. Call it a truce, defeat, whatever you want. And so, Bhishma says, I'm willing to just say that I've lost to you. I'm willing to say whatever. And Parshuram says, no, it's okay. It can be known that you defeated me. And then Amba says, she takes this vow and she says, I vow then that I will do my best. I will kill you. I will figure it out. I will kill Bhishma. He's ruined my life. So there's a whole vengeance scheme now. And Amba gets a boon from Lord Shiva that she gets a garland first from Kartikeya. Anyone who wears the garland will kill Bhishma. She goes to so many other kings, but no other kings want to do battle with Bhishma. He just defeated Parshuram. And they're like, no, we're smarter than that. We can't do that. So when she prays to Lord Shiva, Lord Shiva says, don't worry. You will become, in your next birth, you'll become a man. Don't worry. And so then she says, well, I don't want to wait for my next birth. And then she jumps into a fire and ends her life. So there's such a elaborate, long story. And then she's born actually as the daughter of King Drupad. Later, by the blessings of a forest celestial entity, a yaksha, she becomes a man. And her name is Shikandi.
Yes.
And so then Krishna advises all of the Pandavas. He says, bring Shikandi forth on the battlefield. That is the only way you're going to be able to defeat Bhishma, because Bhishma will stop fighting if Shikandi is there. He already knows the true identity of who Shikandi is. He knows that this was Amba. He knows all of these things. And so he has vowed he won't do it. And so Krishna, in his own manipulative and very smart way, he brings Shikandi to the battlefield, and Shikandi is there and is shooting arrows. And then Bhishma lays down his weapons. And behind Shikandi is Arjuna, now having to shoot arrows at his beloved grandfather. He loves Bhishma Dev. And Bhishma Dev loves Arjuna. Both of them are crying. It is such a heart-wrenching scene that Arjuna feels like, I don't want to do this. I can't do this. Why should I do this? And there are several times it's described in Mahabharata that Krishna actually gets angry with Arjuna. And he jumps off the chariot 2-3 times. And then Arjuna has to pull him back. And he says, I'm sorry. I promise. I'll do what I said. Because Krishna's like, I've already elaborated to you Bhagavad Gita. You already promised you would do this. And now you're fighting and you're not even trying your hardest. That's it. I'll do it myself. I'll kill everyone myself. And Arjuna says, no, my lord, if you get angry, who knows what will happen? Okay, I'll do it. So he's crying. Bhishma's crying. But finally, that is how he gets to be laid on this bed of arrows. He's defeated by the Pandavas.
Well, talk about synopsis in a hurry. That's like, so anybody, don't worry. If you want to know more, you can message Acyuta Gopi, get in contact with her. If there's anything you would like to speak, you could speak to me as well. That is something that is really to the crux. But some people will say, why did they have to do this? But I've just got one other question come through, and it's so nice because it shows the audience are also helping and supporting by answering. So let me give you an example. Okay. So we had this question by Pritvin Kamath. Why was Bhishma Dev on the side of the Kauravas, even though he knew about Krishna? Not sure if it's relevant to this point. Yes, it is. Well done. Relevant. Yeah. So now, because we talked about duty, and look, so nice. Chetan said Bhishma had pledged to protect the Kauravas, bound by duty. So nice. So this is one aspect. Would you like to elaborate on that, or
it's totally exactly right.
There we go.
He considered himself bound by duty, and this is why sometimes Krishna says, "Well, if that duty is not serving me, sometimes you have to abandon it." And he went to Karna Krishna went to Karna several times and he says, look, come over on our side. I'll give you everything. I will make it right. I'll make it perfect. Karna says, but I've got my duty. I've got all of these things that I have to do. He says, it doesn't matter. The only duty you have is to listen to me. I can tell you I'm the Supreme Lord. Karna says, I understand that, but I think I've got to make it on my own. Krishna's like, this is foolish, but okay. And Karna dies.
Yes.
He doesn't make it, but he would have. That's the thing. Krishna would have changed the workings of the entire drama. And the fact that he was willing to do so for those who would have devotion for him was just amazing.
Okay, and these are the points, and I'm loving this. Some people are saying very deep discussion, interesting to listen. Salute these devotees. That's very kind of you. Thank you so much. Please keep blessing us that we can do this and sharing with all of you these points. And I've got a really nice question. They're all nice questions, but I like to play devil's advocate because that I think is also important. So Roshni, I love your question. She says, why do Krishna not appear in a vision and tell Bhishma to do the right thing? So why do Krishna not appear in a vision and tell Bhishma to do the right thing?
Well, Bhishma already knew. I mean, he sees him on the battlefield. Bhishma could have abandoned that plan at any moment. He didn't have to appear in a vision. Krishna was right there before him on the battlefield. And Bhishma was still shooting him with arrows. Like, we have to understand the gravity of this situation. It sounds well and good in the context of Leela, play that happened a long time ago. But he didn't have to appear in a vision. Can you imagine seeing the Supreme Lord in front of you? He's the Supreme Lord. And then you go, let me shoot him with this arrow. Shoot him. The arrows hit Krishna. He had blood coming out from his skin, from these arrows that nicked him and whizzed past him and shot him on the way to getting to Arjuna. So it's not like he didn't appear. He saw him several times. But Bhishma was so holding fast to this duty. And that's why Krishna says, this is a sinking ship. What did this righteousness do for you? Did it save you at the time of death? Was it your duty and your righteousness that saved you? No, it was only Krishna appearing before him that saved him at the time of death. That is it. It's all he could fix his mind on.
Wow. We've got so many questions. I'm just trying to get through. Okay. So Govinda Hari. I love that name. Hurry. Govinda Hari. How do we know which vows, he's put, can be broken? For instance, the Pandavas married Draupadi due to the blessings from their mother. Couldn't that be broken? So are we talking about vows because we talk about duty? So I thought I'd just bring that question in here.
So there's a very interesting thing, and I was talking about it yesterday. So Yudhishthira and the Pandavas were very interesting. They would worship Lord Shiva. They would worship so many different demigods. They even worship goddess Durga for certain things. So one would say, well, why is that? Aren't pure devotees only supposed to worship Krishna? Aren't they not supposed to worship the demigods? Don't we hear that? Right? You've heard that, Jagannatha.
Yep.
So
true.
Why do we see the Pandavas now worshiping Lord Shiva, goddess Durga, and others? Brahma, Indra, all of these. Why do we see that happen? It's very interesting to note. In every single instance, they met with Krishna beforehand, and Krishna told them to worship that particular demigod. It is said in Skanda Purana, where he tells them to worship the goddess Durga. It is said in Garga Samhita, where he tells them to worship Indradev and Brahma and Lord Shiva and retrieve all those weapons. There are so many different Puranas where they met with Krishna and Krishna told them to go worship. So in this same instance, we have to work on what Krishna is telling us to do. Maharishi Vyasadeva appears upon the scene because they don't want to marry her. They're thinking, but this is irreligious. We are going to go down in the pages of history as an abomination. What will happen? What will happen to her? She's going to be defamed for this action. And Dvaipayana Vyasadeva, who is also known as Krishna, who is also known as an incarnation of the Lord, empowered with the teachings of the Supreme and the Divine. So this is a little esoteric still, but he appears and he tells them, he's the one who tells them, she did this vow, she prayed to Lord Shiva, this is what happened as regards to this vow. But in so many instances, Krishna also appears and assures them that they've done the right thing by marrying her. This is all according to the will of the divine. So how do we know which vows are to be kept and which vows are to be broken? Srila Rupa Goswami says we should accept those things favorable to our devotional service, and we should reject those things that are unfavorable to our devotional service. So we have to examine our vows at every stage of our lives and say, is this really conducive to me performing my service to the divine? We have to consult the divine at every step of the way, which means consulting our spiritual teachers, which means our mantra meditation, by which we can speak individually to the divine who is living within our hearts. But we have to check in. That has to be our gauge and our barometer. So what is helping me to perform my devotional service? If it's working, I accept it. If it is not, then I have to reject that plan. I have to work around it. I have to do something else. I have to ask God for a loophole.
That's it. Love it. There's the loophole, the spiritual loophole. There we go. No, joking. But we've got here Rashi 2785. She's just wrote, please save this video so I can come back and let's see it. Haribo. Yes, Rashi. This will be available. Come onto my channel, Jagannatha_Dasa, and it'll be on IGTV, available there. So please do check it out. And please do comment. We want to see comments on this. What did you take away from this session? What is it that you feel you want to imbibe in your life? How has it helped enlighten you? Or has it disenlightened you? It doesn't matter. Let us know. We'd love to hear both sides of the coin. And I really like this Chetan guy. He's been really great. We had another question coming in and he's answered it, which is nice. So Vishal's asked the question, didn't Bhishma have the benediction to choose the time of death? And yes, he did. That's what I think. That's one thing we wanted to just bring up, that yes, he did. He had the choosing, but he wanted to see the divine. And this is the way that it all happened towards the end. That's when he passed. And like we're talking about Uttar, you talked about the Lord, the name Uttar Narayana, wasn't it? Right?
Yeah.
So
you know, what's amazing about that is he had the benediction to choose his time of death, which meant that he had such a hunger to see the divine that he waited through days and days of pain, through days and days of suffering, because he wasn't just happy on that bed of arrows. It was not comfortable. So look at that amazing austerity. That is tapasya. Lying on this bed with arrows piercing you from every angle. And this pain coming from all of these wounds. He would not even treat the wounds. So this is incredible tapasya. We might think, you see someone who has all this, riddled with cancer for so many months, and they think, oh, why would God do what is happening? Why would this happen? All these things. But sometimes this hunger to wait for that moment, to wait on the timing of the Supreme Person, to wait on divine timing, is such an amazing quality that Bhishma Dev had. He had the divine patience to wait on divine arrangement.
There we go. The divine patience. And that's something that it teaches us. We have to be patient and tolerant in life to have things happen. So keep the patience, keep in there, everybody. And like we said, look at the teachings of Lord Bhishma, the way he did the things he did. Let's try and work in that way. I can't believe time's going, and I really would love a kirtan because this is a time for kirtan. But before we go to Acyuta Gopi doing a kirtan, so we can all have a bit of mantra meditation, I want to do one thing whilst it's happening. I'm very curious to know where everybody is from. Okay, so I really would like, as the kirtan's happening, where are you tuning in from today? So
Yes, please.
yeah, so just to make it, just say that the town or the city you live in. Don't need to put America, India. We just want to know what is the town, what is the city you are from. So please do that, Insta family. Please do that, our Facebook family, and you know, we could we just love to hear where are you all from. So please mention it, and as it's happening, please do Acyuta Gopi, if we could have a lovely kirtan, just to take all this in, this knowledge that you shared today. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Everyone saying beautiful singing, simply divine. Beautiful song. Thank you everybody for joining. Thank you for transporting us back and really helping to nourish the prayers of Bhishma Dev, and just letting them know. And by the way, we've got people from all over the world joining us: East Africa, Tanzania, America, I've been putting them on in Stone 9, San Francisco, Trinidad. Wow.
Wow.
So nice. So everybody, thank you so much for coming, and thank you to the Insta family as well for all your lovely questions. Thank you to the Facebook family as well for all the engagement. And this is how it works. We all, we want to hear from you. We want to know what questions you have. And remember, this is happening every Thursday. So please do join us and do interact. We really want everybody to nourish and take something away. And that is our service we're trying to do to help wherever we can. So before we finish as well, you'll be thinking, my God, Acyuta Gopi, she comes out with these gems, these nectar gems. What is it? What's her realizations? How's she doing? You heard a little bit from the book, as it's called, the Prema Mala. So I've put at the bottom, for those that can see on some of the platforms that allow me to, the Prema Mala book itself. If you want a copy, please do check it out. I've noticed recently as well that some of the people have got signed copies coming to them, Acyuta Gopi.
Yes.
Will that be possible for some if they would like?
Yeah. So signed copies are available in the US, and I am working on it. And it seems as though some shipping from the US to at least the UK might be possible.
Oh.
Yeah.
Ooh.
So now that the
not that there's any biasness going on, not that because I'm from the UK, just so everybody knows.
Well, actually, Jagannath is the reason. He's one of the reasons that this shipping to the UK might be possible. So if you're in the UK, I can send them about 5 copies per shipment. So if you are interested, we can talk about the shipping cost, which won't be much more than the shipping in US dollars. So we can talk about it now that the post office seems to be opening up again. Things are shipping nicely. So let's talk about it, and we'll see. Let me know. Let Jagannath know if you want a signed copy. We'll get it all in touch.
We'll sort that out. Yeah. Tag team.
That's right.
So if you want a copy, you can order it. Of course, there is a place where you can order it. It's called www.mybook.to/Prema, Prema. Check it out. And of course, make myself or make Acyuta Gopi aware that you would like it. You would like a signed copy, and we'll see what we can do to make that happen for you. Look at that rhyming. It just comes in sometimes, it's all this poetry we're going through. It just happens. So, and I just want to say a big thank you, Sharon, and thank you for everybody that has been commenting, questioning, and also answering some of the questions, and you answer. This is when you know you've got a nice community, that when one person asks a question, another one answers. So let's keep that up. Let's keep that spiritual momentum flying high until the next time we meet. I just want to say Hare Krishna and thank you. And finally, I just realized World Holy Name Festival is happening, everybody, 17th to the 23rd of September. So watch this space. We're going to have some global events happening. One's called Global Kit and Connect, by the way, Acyuta Gopi. I'll be getting in contact with you about that, where we're going to have 24 time zones, and each time zone is going to have 1 hour to do kirtan. That's on 20th of September. This is going to be mind-blowing, everybody. Remember this, Global Kit and Connect from the World Holy Name Festival team. I'll be sending some more details on that. I just realized, how could I forget that? On that. Hare Krishna. And we'll speak to everybody again soon. Take care.